而家要帶埋上去。好，都差唔多。
I think that's about it.
唔該晒。
Thank you so much.
各位傳
Friends of the media, good afternoon. Thank you for coming to this press conference on the policy address. In a moment, the chief executive will first speak using a PowerPoint before she takes questions from the floor. Now, because of the pandemic, and we have a packed room here, but please try to keep your distance as far as possible. Now, I invite the chief executive to say a few words. Friends of the media, members of the public, today I delivered my last policy address in my term. The policy address is titled Building a Bright Future Together. Well, this it is a substantial report covering many aspects, so therefore at the policy address I would like to highlight a few key areas of our work. First, there are quite a number of publications published together with the policy address. Now we have the policy address speech, of course, and the relevant leaflet. And then this year, like in the past 2 years, there is a policy address supplement. As I explained yesterday, the supplement reported our work in the past 4 years, and there are over 300 new initiatives in the supplement too. And then there is another document that's of great interest to the public, that is the Northern Metropolis Development Strategy. So we are publishing the report in English and Chinese at the same time with the policy address. We've also prepared a leaflet. And then the third document is the 14th five-year plan, which shows the central government's support for Hong Kong to develop in 8 different centers. So we have a fact sheet kit this time to explain the advantages of Hong Kong, our present situation, and what measures we're going to take to further develop these centers. So that's the third document. The fourth document is that we want to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature. The next LESCO will commence. Next term of the LESCO will commence on the 1st of January 2022. So we are preparing a list of legislative proposals for the 7th term. And members will be able to give their views on what they think about these legislative proposals in advance. And then we're going to publish 2 other documents in the next 2 days. They are included in the policy address. One is the final report of the Hong Kong 2030 Plus. Now we've been working on this for some time, and tomorrow the Secretary for Development will be publishing the final report. And of course, that is the Hong Kong 2030 Plus towards a planning vision and strategy transcending 2020. I think what will be of great interest to the public would be our estimate on the land required in Hong Kong. The other report to be published tomorrow will be the Hong Kong's Climate Action Plan 2050. It will set a medium to long-term goals on how we could achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. So you could look out for these documents to be published in the next day or 2. Now, I would like to allow more time for questions, so I would just highlight 3 key aspects of the policy address. One, of course, is the Northern Metropolis Development Strategy. The other is the building of an international Innovation and Technology Center. Third is land supply and housing supply. For the northern metropolis development, well, you heard my speech, but maybe you still were asking a question as to what is meant by a northern metropolis. In the metropolis, it should cover various development. There should be job opportunities, there should be housing, and also recreational facilities and so on. And together, they will form a metropolis. In Hong Kong, of course, Hong Kong as a whole is a metropolis in Asia. But then if you want to pick an area in Hong Kong that has the characteristics of a metropolis, definitely we'll pick the two sides of the Victoria Harbour. That is the developments along the northern part of Hong Kong Island and also Kowloon in Kowloon. And so that's why Hong Kong has become an international financial and business center. Our first core business district is in Central. The second one is in Kowloon East. So this is the Victoria Harbour metropolis. If we want to build another metropolis in Hong Kong, we have picked the location of the north, and it's only a matter of course because it's still underdeveloped, so there's a potential. The northern metropolis is now shown here in the dotted line area that covers the northern administrative district as well as the Yuen Long administrative district. It covers an area of 300 square kilometers. You know, in Hong Kong, we have a size of 1,100 square kilometers, so it's about 30% of the total area of Hong Kong, and that will be covered in the northern metropolis. We keenly look forward to well-developed metropolis in the north and in the south. In the south, that's the harbour metropolis. In the north, it will be the northern metropolis. So they will have their own characteristics, and they will be, you know, developing in different areas. Now, for harbour metropolis doesn't mean we're not going to do anything because it's developed. Of course, the harbour metropolis, the most important development would be the Khao Yi Chao artificial islands that will be included in the harbour metropolis. So the third CBD would be built after reclamation of the Khao Yi Chao artificial islands. The Khao Yi Chao artificial islands are going to provide a large number of jobs and also housing units. So here we're talking about the north and the south. There will be two metropolises. They will develop in tandem in promoting the development of Hong Kong. Now, for the northern metropolis, it's not true that it's a purely virgin district. We already have new towns here in Jiangshui, Fanling, and so on. And then you see the different colored development nodes. These are new development nodes, but then these nodes are being developed independently. For example, Yuen Long South, Hong Shui Kiu, Ha Chun, Man Kam To node, or the future NT North new town. But then with the northern metropolis, we're going to integrate these developments so they linked to each other in some ways, and then there will be strategic development of the metropolis as a whole. Now, there is no need to give a legal definition for the metropolis or to define its boundaries legally. There's also no need to change the boundaries of, say, the Yuen Long administrative district and so on, because if the metropolis is developing well, and it could be further extended to the south or north, either towards Shenzhen or other parts of the new territories. Now, of course, there is close cooperation between Shenzhen and Hong Kong. The metropolis is just a river away from Shenzhen, and many people have to go to Shenzhen for business, investment, or work. There are already 7 land crossings. One of the crossings has co-location facilities and Shenzhen Bay, but it's still one of the land boundary control points. And you see these dots here show the land crossings. As you have heard, we've described these land crossings to be the busiest crossings anywhere in the world. There are some 600,000 to 700,000 people going through these boundary control points between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. There is much significance in the development of the Northern Metropolis. Now, we have enacted the national security law, and then we have improved the electoral system. We're going back on the right track of one country, two systems, so that allows us more opportunities to be integrated into the national development. Therefore, we should not be hampered by any administrative boundaries. So you can see that this is the first development strategy of the SF government that's groundbreaking. We have looked beyond the physical boundaries of Hong Kong and Shenzhen, and we're looking further to the north. Hopefully then we could create synergy. And as I have explained in the policy address, we want 1 + 1 to be equal more than 2, so that will be complementing each other's strengths. Now, of course, there are other cities nearby, Shenzhen, Macau, and so on, but Shenzhen is the biggest partner of Hong Kong. So hopefully then with this metropolis, we could leverage on the functions of Hong Kong and Shenzhen as the dual engines for development. Now, of course, if we don't do this, what is planned will still happen, but then there won't be interaction or integration. Now, with this strategy, we're able to further integrate the various developments. Now, within the Northern Metropolis area, there are 300 square kilometers of development on transportation links, and then we could therefore create more land for housing and other purposes. And that's the second one. Third point is that we have learned from the experience of developing new towns. Now, every time our objective is self-sufficiency, but we're never able to achieve that objective. That's why for residents from Tin Shui Wai, they have to make long commutes to get to work. So that's something we want to see improvement. So with the Northern Metropolis, we want to further improve upon, further enhance the innovation and technology development systems in the area. Now, for the Harbour Metropolis, development is led by the financial services and business sectors, and they're able to create a large number of jobs. So for Northern Metropolis, development will be led by innovation and technology. Now, for Northern Metropolis area, most are still undeveloped land, so there is a rich ecosystem and rich habitats. So that's why we want to make sure there is rural, urban development. And so we are trying to enhance the environmental capacity of the area as we try to strive for urban-rural integration. So for the Northern Metropolis, it will be a place good for living in, for working in, and for spending leisure time. Now, as I said, Hong Kong and Shenzhen is separated just by a river. We have the two bays and one river geographically. That is the Shenzhen Bay and the Myers Bay. And then in the middle, there's the Shenzhen River. So those form the boundaries for the two places. Because the State Council said before that the middle of the Shenzhen River is the administrative boundary for Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And then on top of that, we have 7 land crossings. So we are going to move in the direction of Twin Cities 3 circles. The two cities, of course, Shenzhen and Hong Kong. The 3 circles are from the west to the east. From the west, we have the Shenzhen Bay Quality Development Circle. We're just starting development here, Hongshui Kiu, Haqin, and Lau Fao Shan. So there's much flexibility in shaping the development there. So at the outset, we're going to provide quality industrial development. And then further to the east, we have the Qianhai, of course. The extended Qianhai cooperation zone will reach the coast of the bay, And so this 120 square kilometers of the extended Qianhai Cooperation Zone would allow for co-development with Laofoshan, so we could develop a quality development circle there for quality services. And then the circle in the middle, that's high density of development because everything is concentrated here, the Mankam Toll crossing, Lok Ma Chau, Law Wu crossings, and even Hangyuan crossings, they're all here. So in this circle, it will become the Hong Kong Shenzhen close interaction circle. We want to identify room for close cooperation between Shenzhen and Shenzhen, in terms of medical care, innovation, technology, and education, and so on. The third circle, what you see is green here. So this is where there is rich habitat. So this will become the Myers Bay Yan Chao Tong Eco Recreation Tourism Circle. So Twin Cities three circles. In the three circles, they have their own special features. And at the same time, there will be certain lanes to integrate them into Metropolis development. Now, for this Metropolis development strategy, it remains a concept at this stage, but we've done much in the past 3-4 months. I've, as you know, I've engaged the former Director of Planning, Mr. Ling Ka-keung, to be my advisor. So that's why we have now come up with 45 action plans and 10 directions. Well, we're numbering them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just so it's easy for you to remember. If you go through the report, you will see the alignment, the initial, preliminary alignment of the different new rail projects. There are 5 new rail projects. The first one is the Hongshui-Kiu Ha-Chun rail link that will extend to Qianhai. It is a cross-boundary rail link, so that means there will be need for new boundary control point, and we want there to be co-location arrangement. We've already reserved several hectares of land there for a cross-boundary rail station. The second link is the northern link that will be extended further northwards to go via the Hong Kong Shenzhen Innovation and Technology Park in Ma Chau Loop to reach the new Huanggang BCP. Again, land has been reserved for linking up this section of the rail line. The third extension, the third rail project is the East Rail Line, which is already much used by the public. The Reach East Rail Line ends at cross-boundary Law Wu Station, and we've talked to the Shenzhen authorities. We could extend this line eastwards further to cross the Shenzhen River, so we could reach the Law Wu Station in Shenzhen, and then there could be co-location facilities. So again, we'll be able to free up some land, like in the case for the Huanggang port, because we're extending the clearance facilities to the other side of the river. So with this extension of the East Rail Line, now before the Law Wu station, but in between Law Wu and Shengshui station, we could add another station, and we will temporarily call it the Law Wu South station. It's not for cross-boundary purpose, but it's really for residential and business purpose. And the fourth line is the northern link moving eastwards this time. So we will go via Law Wu, Hengyun Way, Ping Che, Ta Kwu Ling, and Queen's Hill, where there will be a population intake at public housing estate. And that could be then linked up with the East Rail Line. Again, the fifth project is not necessarily a rail project. It could be an automated people mover. It could be a monorail between TMHK and Laofoshan. And it will be facing Qianhai. So it will be a nice coastal link with beautiful scenery. So these are 5 new railway projects. And then we're able to identify 4 other housing length of large-scale housing projects is on top of what we have planned. We have already the Yuen Long South, Shenzhen, and so on. These projects will go ahead because the Development Bureau has been making plans for that. But then we are able to enhance the capacity. For example, along Hong Shui Kiu, Ha Chun, and then La Foshan Park Nai, Ku Tong, Ma Chou Long. And also, when we have the new Lowu South Station along Man Kam To, there could be also more development. But of course, development has to coexist with conservation. So we are building 3 new wetland parks in Nam Shen Wei, Shanpo Shu, and Ho Kok Hui. And there won't be development in these areas. In fact, we're going to resume some private fish ponds for better management. And then that means we will have these outdoor recreational facilities on 2 spots. One is an anti-and urban rural greenway that traverses countryside and along the stream course. So it will be the first trail not in a country park. The other is the Coastal Protection Park and Waterfront Promenade from TMHK to Pak Nai, where there is beautiful scenery. We're going to build the Santin Technopole there with an area of 1,100 hectares. About 150 hectares will be reserved for I&T development. The floor area will be 16.5% of the science park in Park Shek. So this is a huge project, and that gives us the confidence to develop Hong Kong into an international I&T center.
Moving on to the next subject. Now we talk about building Hong Kong into an international innovation technology center. The measures are in different chapters, so I would like to give you a highlight how we can develop Hong Kong into an international innovation and technology center in the GBA. In the past 4 years, we have invested $130 billion into this area. The money was well spent. Now the ecosystem is thriving. If you ask any practitioners, they will tell you that we have ushered into a golden era. The Central People's Government also spare no efforts in investing in innovation technology, from the Ministry of Science and to municipal governments. They have been very supportive to development of innovation technology. In this policy address, I mentioned that we would build a more comprehensive I&T ecosystem. Of course, we need infrastructure. We have a shortage of infrastructure and land. So we are going to provide a massive amount of infrastructure. First, we will have an extension of the Pak Shek Kok Science Park. There are some 900 companies there with some 15,000 R&D facilities there. After moving the Ma Liu Shui, after the reclamation of Ma Liu Shui and the relocation of the Sha Tin sewage treatment plants, we will be able to free up a lot of area for the extension. Now, residents are worried that there will be traffic congestion. However, there will be home-job synergy, and it will not create a huge burden for the transportation system. The Pak Shek Kok Science Park is our flagship infrastructure for innovation and technology. So we have to enhance the public transport connection between Pak Shek Kok and the urban area. That's why we are going to add a new station near the university station. The name is still to be confirmed. We have to add this new station. Near the East Rail, there is a plot of site. Currently, it is a sports venue for the Hong Kong Education University students. They can come to this sports facilities to play sports. This is not very desirable. The president of the Hong Kong Education University told me that he would like to relocate the sports facility to a site next to the Education University and free up the site for building this station.
And so on top of the station, we could build public housing, private housing, parking spaces, and shopping malls. As for the University of Education sports ground, we have made arrangement for that. We're going to help them reprovision their sports facilities that would become more convenient for their students. The third project is the Phase 5 Cider Port. Building area floor area will be increased by 40%. And then for the development in Lau Fau Shan facing Shanghai, we would like to have a flagship innovation and technology project. It may not be called the cyber part, but it will be something, a place where IT sectors could put their business in. And then the fourth is to build a Shenzhen Technopole, and that's building Hong Kong's Silicon Valley. Now, it will be 540 hectares. 300 hectares will be in Shenzhen, that is the Shenzhen Hong Kong I&T Park. It will be along the port economic belt that covers Futian. Now, there are just 87 hectares originally in the Lok Ma Chau Loop, and then in Shenzhen, we are able to identify another 150 hectares of land for I&T purposes. So together, we have 247 hectares, 300 hectares in Shenzhen, so in total about 540 hectares. So it is an I&T zone with some obvious advantage. So Shenzhen and Hong Kong are going to join hands to develop this 540 hectares of I&T zone, and then we will have the relevant talents and businesses here. Definitely, we would be comparable to the Silicon Valley. And then fifthly, these three universities would like to build their more laboratories and R&D facilities. For Hong Kong U, we're going to give them a site in Fu Lam, and for the Chinese University, there is site also for them. For the Polytechnic University, is in a developed area, so it's hard to give them more land. But then the Polytechnic University has another site for self-financing courses. So when I visited the university, they asked for government support to turn that campus into R&D purpose, and I fully support that proposal. Now, I&T cannot just be stuck at the academic or R&D stage. There has to be commercialization of R&D results. And to achieve that, we need reindustrialization. We need to have industrial manufacturing for us to apply technologies on a large scale. Now, many have said that there are few industries left in Hong Kong. In the past 2 months, I've been talking more to the industrial sector. I'm grateful to the Federation of Industries. They have prepared important research report for Hong Kong. And from that report, I've drawn inspiration. In Hong Kong, we do have the potential for smart manufacturing or manufacturing driven by innovation and technology. Now, in Science Park, there is the first AMC in Chung Kung O. It's very popular. Before it's completed, many have asked to lease the place. So we should, therefore, enhance our support for such manufacturing, the smart manufacturing. We're going to build a second AMC, and then for Shenzhen, we're going to have a new policy for granting land for manufacturers driven by I&T, for example, high-end pharmaceutical factories. They could do R&D here and then manufacture also here. Now, to show that we attach great importance to such environments, that's why I'm proposing to rename the Innovation and Technology Bureau into the Innovation, Technology and Industry Bureau. So at least for this part about INT development, INT manufacturing is certainly would come under the Innovation Technology Industry Bureau. And then we have other new platforms for R&D. One is Inno centers. One is for life health tech. The other for robotics. Now we have already introduced 28 laboratories here. Each laboratory partners with a university. I've visited 2 such labs myself. They really do have great potential. Now, we're going to build the 3rd Inno Center on life health. Because in the 14th Five-Year Plan, life sciences are a key in development because we want our people to live healthily. So therefore, we're going to set up the Inno Life Health Tech Hub. On talents, last year I introduced some projects. They've been very successful. Some 40 that is the STEM progress. There are some 40 teams already in Hong Kong. More will be coming to Hong Kong. Now, apart from government investment, we could also encourage private investment. So there is a future fund in the Hong Kong Group portfolio. There should be more investment in local companies. That is venture companies. Of land and housing supply. This is, of course, a priority area of our work. In this slide, you can see future land and housing supply. I stress that we have to keep up a persistent effort in the land and housing supply. We must not stop such efforts just because, say, property prices are dropping. It happened in the past. That's why we have seen the difficulties now. So that's why I've always said that we need to have a persistent land and housing supply policy. If we keep up our effort, then some 1 million residential units will be available in the market to meet the needs of the public. Of course, it may take 20 to 25 years, but it's a long-term goal. We want everyone to either be able to buy their own homes or to get rental housing. So, and then property prices will stabilize. So where we're going to get these 1 million units? First is the 10-year long-term housing strategy. Under the LTHS, we are able to achieve all the targets for public housing production. That's 310,000 units. Last year we managed to find 300 plus hectares. This year 350 hectares. So together we are able to build 310 and 1,000 public housing units. And also we need private housing, of course. We sell land. There are MTR projects, and also that's lease modification or redevelopment projects. So together, these projects would give us. And then in the policy address, we are saying that there will be 170 hectares of land provided by the government for private housing production. And that does not count, units arising from lease modification, redevelopment, and so on. So we want to achieve the 10-year target of 129,000 private housing units, and it won't be difficult at all. If you attended the press conference by Mr. Michael Wong last week on land and housing supply, and then you see that in the third quarter, you see 80% of the land came from the government. In fact, from January to August this year, much of the housing supply came from private land supply, either through lease modification or urban renewal. So in the next decade, definitely we're able to achieve the target of private housing production, but it's not included in this total figure here. Here, the total figure only covers the land that's under the control of the government, the 170 hectares of land under the government control. And then if we look at an even longer term for projects that are being planned, that is the Kao Yi Chao Artificial Islands Reclamation Project, and also projects already planned for the northern part of the new territories. There will be another 400 to 500,000 units for both public and private housing. Now, of course, we're going to split that 70 to 30 in terms of public and private housing. But then here we're talking 400 to 500,000 units. And then with the Northern Metropolis development strategy announced today, they would provide another 165,000 to 186,000 units in the private and public sector. So in total, we could have a range of 995,000 to 1.1 million units. But that's not actually the total number because we're not counting land in the hand of private developers. I'm just talking about units that could be produced on land under the control of the government. But then, as you know, private developers also hold large area of land. So if we could streamline further the reference processes and there could be further sharing of land and we could release more land, then we could be producing even more land for housing production. So that means we could produce more than 1.1 million units. You might ask, $1 million units extra, what does that mean in reality? Now, at the moment, we have 2.94 million units in Hong Kong. So 1 million units means about 40 to 38% of the current stock. So it's a huge increase. We have a low fertility rate, birth rate, and we have an aging population. Even if we're going to recruit talents, the growth in the population would not be at this rate. That's why I'm confident that if we could produce these units, we will be able to resolve the housing issue completely. But before that, of course, we still need to help the public who are inadequately housed. So that's why we're increasing transition housing units from 15,000 to 20,000. As for the 3-year cash allowance trial scheme, that's still underway, and if necessary, we will extend the cash scheme to help the inadequate housed and or those who are on the waiting list for public housing. To sum up, under the dual safeguards of national security and the Patriots administering Hong Kong, we are at a time where we have the most confidence and the foundations for implementing the visions of this policy address. But of course, we still need the support of the public, and that's why the title of this policy address is Building a Bright Future Together. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Now we will open the floor to questions. Please raise your hands, and please tell us your media organization, and then ask your questions. We have many reporters today. I suggest each reporter ask 2 questions. The reporter on the right. Good afternoon, Mrs. Lam. I'm from Cable News. 2 questions. Please speak up. In your policy address, you mentioned that you would recommend to the next term of the government to reorganize the structure of the government. And you mentioned that in the next few months, you would consult different stakeholders and come up with a detailed plan. So is that a plan for your bid to rerun as chief executive? And also, is there a priority of restructuring, and why do we need that? Another question about Article 23. You said you would take forward a legislation of Article 23 in due course. So would you conduct public consultation, and how would you do that? 2 questions. So we have to be well prepared to implement all these measures. We need an enhanced government structure. So this government restructuring is from the top. We are restructuring the organization of the bureaus. We are not reorganizing the government structure generally. So the portfolios would be shuffled, but it is only confined to the policy bureaus. What we need most is leadership in Hong Kong. And the policy bureaus are where the leadership come from. We have a 180,000 strong civil service force, and in terms of execution, they are doing very well. In terms of priority of restructuring, we have to look into the legal issues. Now, there are bureaus and names on the law, and it involves the reshuffling of the power of bureaus and departments. It involves the internal structure of bureaus and departments, and also it involves changing the names. In year 2007, I was the secretary for development, and I didn't get a name card in a few months. So there's not a specific sequence. The restructuring will take place as a whole, and then we would give the recommendations to the next term of the government. It is out of the practical need. We are in the last 8 months of my term of the government. If we engage in restructuring now, then the next term of the government will have to accept the government structure, and it is not right morally or ethically. So I will not do that. I will discuss the matter with the new legislative term. We would need their support for that. And then if the new chief executive elected next year agrees to the reorganization plan concerning the restructuring of the government and the new funding regime, then the new structure can be implemented on the 1st of July. So this is the more ideal way to go. We are doing this because it is the core of the public. We cannot avoid that. It has nothing to do with my bid to rerun. I am a very responsible person. I will not remain idle because my term is coming to an end. If the new term of the Legislative Council agrees to the plan, then we will suggest it to the next term of the government. It has nothing to do with my bid to rerun. Second, the local legislation of Article 23 is a constitutional duty. Now, the few terms of the government after 2003 really try to avoid, to dodge this issue. They said it would not be done during their term of the government. But we all saw what risk we are exposed to without national security laws. It is also a risk to our fellow countrymen in the PRC. So we cannot take an evasive attitude on this. We have to be brave and courageous in legislating Article 23. But it is no easy task to do so in an accurate manner. There are 7 offenses involved. We have criminal offenses, ordinance, and other ordinances involved. But I can assure you that this will be completed within the next term of the Legislative Council. Whether we can finish that earlier on, it really depends on the speed of the consultation. You asked whether there would be consultation. Of course, there would be consultation. So, as I've mentioned in this pamphlet, this pamphlet contains the 40 legislative proposals. For 31, they can be enacted immediately. For the remaining 9, it is written that these are proposals requiring public consultation. It involves Proposal 32 to amend existing legislation to implement Article 23 of the Basic Law to safeguard national security. Since public consultation is involved, it is not likely that it can be done within a few months. So I'm not checking responsibility. So this is a very strange accusation. You just have to sit down and look at the timetable to to see that this cannot be done within 7 or 8 months. Now, this is the 25th anniversary of the establishment of the SAR, so a lot is happening. So if someone thinks that we can complete legislation for Article 23 within the end of this term of the government, it is not a very practical thought. No matter how hardworking and how proactive the Secretary for Security is, he cannot do that. I've asked him whether he can finish the task within this term, and he said no. However, proposals will be published for the public to discuss. Besides consultation on law drafting, we also have to do a good job in terms of publicity. We cannot we cannot be hijacked, and we cannot have people disseminating misinformation to trick people or incite people, like in year 2019. Thank you. Next question, the lady in the front. Good afternoon, Mr. Lam. I'm from Singtao Daily, Law Wan Tong. A question on the restructuring of the government. In the policy address, you came up with several suggestions. One is about splitting the Transport and Housing Bureau, and also rationalizing the works portfolio. So we will not merge the Development Bureau and the Housing Bureau. What is your take on that? And about the Home Affairs Bureau. Now the portfolio of culture has been removed. Now there is only youth and district affairs. So what will be the new work portfolio of the Youth and District Affairs Bureau? Another question. Now you said you are just throwing an idea and then inviting views. This is just food for thought. So do you think the next term of the government will accept your proposal? Now, on the restructuring of government structure, I've mentioned 5 directions. On splitting Transport and Housing Bureau, there is a concrete plan. In the previous 2 terms of the government, we had Transport and Housing Bureau, and the portfolio is really too large. There is often the perception that we are just focusing on housing, but not transport. If you look at the 8 centers designated by the central government, many of them are related to transport. There are a maritime transportation hub and the aviation hub, which we have been striving for. And also we have the logistics center as well. And there are many issues about the public transport, for example, transport fare, taxi fare, and smart mobility. So I always think that Mr. Frank Chan has a very huge burden on him. Now, the splitting of the Bureau has received wide support from the public. Now, the Transport Bureau will have a heavy portfolio after the split. And there are views that after the split, the Housing Bureau should be responsible for identifying land supply as well. Well, you have to understand land supply is not just for housing. There are many other uses, for example, economic, government facilities, and there are lots of different plans for land. Now, this is the 3rd term of the government where we have the Development Bureau. There are 2 major work portfolios. One is land planning, from town planning to land administration to building of houses. To build houses, you need planning, and then you need to change the land lease and then submit the plan. For transport, we have highways department, which is under the transportation portfolio to enhance identification of land supply. We have the planning and engineering study portfolio under the same secretary. For the studies we are conducting now, they are under the P&E branch portfolio. So if you are subsuming town planning and land administration under the housing strategy, then what about works? In 2007, when I took office as the first secretary for development, we had the conservation of the Queen's Ferry Pier. So there were calls to combine to let development and conservation coexist. So there were calls that conservation should also be a portfolio under the Secretary for Development, because then I can consider every factor together, and also about harbourfront conservation and trees and so on. So according to my experience, the structure works well. So this is my point of view. I think it is a shame to if we are to split the portfolios of the Development Bureau. It would be against the principle of allowing development and conservation to coexist. So I listen to views. So that's why I'm consulting the public, how we can streamline the supply of housing. I'm open to ideas. Now about Culture, Sports and Tourism Bureau, or taking out the culture portfolio from the HAB, there is still district affairs of the 18 districts. The portfolio is already heavy. Every district has different characteristics, and there are also other portfolios, for example, rural affairs, religious affairs, ethnic minority, and so on. The Home Affairs Bureau is a bureau acting as the bridge between the government and the public. That's why we call it Home Affairs. So with sports and cultures taken away from the bureau, we have to think about what other portfolios the bureau will take up. I suggest youth. Now, youth affairs currently is scattered. So I hope there can be a one-stop administration for youth affairs under the bureau, and also the bureau can enhance its works in terms of providing help for 3 new buildings. For consultation, we will start soon. We will consult the stakeholders of land developments. There are a lot of institutes and professional bodies. Secretaries will take our proposals to seek the members' views. I don't think the public may be very interested in these topics. However, for those who are involved in the development projects, they would be very, very eager to know who they should talk to in the future. So we welcome stakeholders and partners to discuss with us, including with myself. You ask why I assume that the next term of the government would accept my proposal. I didn't assume so. I'm just doing my job, and I think there is a consensus in the public, and this is a problem that we cannot avoid. So there are people, so the secretaries are already sworn in, so it might not be beneficial in terms of administration if we shuffle them right now. So I'm just paving the way for the next term of the government. They can reject my proposal. However, also depends on public's opinion. So if my proposal is supported by the public and the support of the Legislative Council's members, then I think the next term of the government, no matter who the chief executive is, should consider it carefully.
右手邊淺色灰色衫。
The gentleman in grey. Thank you. I'm from the Central TV. I have two questions first. Now, there is much mentioning of integrating into national development. So, what are the concrete and core proposals that will support development in GBA? And another question is on housing issue. The country is very much concerned about the housing issues faced by the public. And then just now, not long ago, Mr. Luo Huining visited cage housing. So are there any specific measures to deal with problems such as subdivided units and cage housing so the public enjoy decent housing? Thank you for your two questions. They cover a wide range of issues. Actually, it may take me at least an hour to give you a full reply, so I'll just give a very brief reply. First, in the 14th five-year plan announced in March this year, there's much support given by the central people government to Hong Kong. Apart from a financial, Hong Kong being a financial center, trade centers, and so on, we could also become a center for cultural exchanges, IP management, and an aviation hub, and so on. So we need to seize upon these opportunities and come up with some concrete measures to make the most of the support given by the central government. That's why in the policy address we have prepared this document. So there's a fact sheet for each of Hong Kong's role as a center, the International Financial Center, Transportation Center, and so on. So we have to look at the national strategy in the 14th five-year plan. For the National Development Strategy, the focus is on innovation and technology. In the next 5 years, life, health, science would be important focus of development. So Hong Kong will develop into an international innovation and technology center. Therefore, we're going to support, because we have good medical schools in Hong Kong, and the two universities, they are ranked top in the world. And then there are many awards have been won. We also have a very robust public healthcare system. We have a huge body of health data. So we need to see how we could leverage on the support given by the government, by the country, and respond to the needs of the development of the country. And that's why we're going to build Hong Kong into a center for life sciences. To be more specific, in the Lok Ma Chau Loop, where we have the Hong Kong Shenzhen INT zone, we're going to have an Inno Life Health Tech Hub. So it will become an R&D center for life health sciences. And that's the attitude we adopt in coming up with specific measures to promote Hong Kong into these various centers. Because we have the support of the country in developing these centers. I would suggest that you refer to this folder of fact sheets, and then you see what measures we have in place. As for integration with the Greater Bay Area, now for the GBA, it's still going to be developed into an INT center, and then there's interaction between Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Macau, and so on. Now, Shenzhen has been a close partner of Hong Kong for over 40 years. I've always said that Shenzhen is a unique business city. Now there are new opportunities for Hong Kong and Shenzhen to work even more closely together. So we could build an economy together that will benefit the development of the Greater Bay Area as a whole. Now, we've never said so much in the policy address about collaboration with Shenzhen. This is the first time. So in particular, about the northern metropolis, there's definitely collaboration with Shenzhen. Much of the work for the northern metropolis is not just to serve Hong Kong, but also Shenzhen. And then there will be new land crossings and so on. So you see there's much integration with Shenzhen. I have great confidence in collaboration between Hong Kong and Shenzhen because we've been doing it for a long time. We've been a long-term partner, and there's close integration between people on the two sides. Now, for the leaders of Shenzhen, for example, Mr. Huang Huizhong, Secretary General, we've worked well together. This year we had meetings, various meetings to take forward various tasks. Now, we are going to have the extended Shanghai cooperation zone. There are bound to be endless opportunities. So for the people of Hong Kong and businesses of Hong Kong, in particular young people of Hong Kong, definitely there will be better development opportunities. On housing, of course, is a huge issue. With housing, of course, it's all about land supply. In the past few years, we have had many out-of-the-box ideas for housing supply. For example, with the prices of HOS flats with market prices. Rather, we link prices to affordability of the public. So that's why all HOS flats in the recent phases have been sold out. Because they are about 26% cheaper than the older batches of HOS flats. And also we've adjusted the ratio of land supply to 70-30 for public and private housing. And also we have home starter projects. That's why with housing policy we have done enough, but we need to do more for land supply. So with land policy, we need to consider how we could create more land for housing production. But you've heard my presentation. In the next decade, we have enough land supply for 330,000 public housing units, and we also have enough land supply for 119,000 private housing units. But then we need to keep up a constant stream of supply, and so we have identified enough land for the next 10 years. But then beyond the 10 years, we still need more land. So. Say in 20 to 25 years, we would have a supply of more than 1 million units. That's about 36 to 38% of the current stock of 2.9 million units. And that's what will meet the needs of the public. So now what we need to do is to make sure that we have proper execution of our plans, and then we're able to start our work early. And then I think on improving governance, the two most important measures are taken by the central government, that is the national security law and improving the electoral system. They will allow us to enhance governance in Hong Kong, and then we could go back to the right track on implementing one country, two systems. There will no longer be infighting, so we will be able to resolve all the issues. Next, the one in pink, please, the lady in pink. Mrs. Lam, I'm from Ming Pao. The northern Metropolis development strategy, what is the estimated cost? Now you are taking forward this project together with the Lantau tomorrow. So would prices be pushed up? And could you really afford it? And then in paragraph 35 of your policy address, you mentioned senior civil service posts. Say it will be based on meritocracy. Does it mean that it's not based on meritocracy now? Your first question. When I introduced the Northern Metropolis project to the executive council members. Some asked about the budget, and others said that we're talking about a vision, a major development strategy. So we're not talking about details at this stage. I hope you will look at it from the angle of a strategy, or a vision rather. But then I can share with you my first-hand experience. In Hong Kong, we're best able to create wealth with land supply. So it may be just a question of cash flow, actually, because we need to resume land, we need to pay compensation, we need to build infrastructure. But once the infrastructure is built, those land would be of great value. Even if we use the land for public housing, we will be able to make money out of it. And for HOS, still, we will make money after we sell the units because there is no land premium cost involved. So with any land development, it will bring us more revenue in future. So it's just a question of cash flow, but then we could issue bonds. Now we're encouraging the issuance of more green bonds for the northern metropolis. Many of the infrastructure projects are green projects, so we could issue green bonds. And then we could ensure we could proceed with these projects on persistent basis. At this point, there's really no need to be concerned about the financial implications. If we say that just because there's going to be a deficit, so we won't do anything, I think then we'll be too short-sighted and we'll be irresponsible in doing that, because these are projects that will help Hong Kong to go forward. Of course, at the next stage, we will have to do assessments of each project and the feasibility studies and so on. And then for the rail projects, we have to assess the alignments. We don't just draw something on the board and that's it. For example, from Hung Shui Kiu to Ha Chun, there is this cross-boundary West Rail. Will there be other stations? In the booklet, we say we want 2 more stations, but others may suggest 3 or 4 or 5 more stations. These are all things we could study. And it's the same with the budget. And then with the railway, as you know, in Hong Kong, before the Sha Tin Central Link and other links, we never had to pay for the development of rail projects because they would be paid for by property development. Now, of course, in the urban area, it will be difficult. For example, for the Island West Line, we won't have land for superstructural development. But then in Lau Fau Shan and other areas which are still not developed, these are greenfield sites, so there's plenty of land that will support the development of railway projects. So you don't need to worry about figures for now, but rather we should look at the concept and see if the project will help to take Hong Kong forward. But I'm sure some will soon suggest that then you should forget about reclamation, just give up on the Kao Yi Chao artificial islands, but I can tell you that's not going to happen. Now, I mentioned the 1 million units that will include the 200 plus units to be produced in Kao Yi Chao. But for Kao Yi Chao artificial islands, there's another important design element there. There's the third CBD because it's close to Central. And also it will further enhance the the road network of Hong Kong. So I must make it clear here, the Northern Metropolis is not going to replace the Kao Yi Chao artificial islands. The Kao Yi Chao project will go ahead as scheduled. In fact, it may be advanced. Now, Mr. Michael Wong, the Secretary for Development, has said that we could start reclamation in 2027, but we are now striving to start reclamation in 2026. Paragraph 35 is under the topic of strengthening the governing team. Now we have the national security law, we have improved the electoral system that would enhance governance. We will be more executive-led. That means we could take our work forward more easily. But as I've explained earlier, it's important that we have the leadership to take forward any work. I always joked about this to Mr. Xia Baolong. You say you want people who are competent and those who are willing to get things done. But what is most important is the willingness to get things done for Hong Kong, not for themselves. So it's not about just keep doing the same thing. It's about wanting to do something new. So it's about having that spirit or that attitude. And we don't need everyone to be think like that. We just need those in the leadership positions to do that. Civil servants. We face so many challenges with the Black Letter riots or the pandemic. We were able to get work done. So Hong Kong managed to come off this unscathed. So it's about having people who are willing to get things done. So that's why at the top echelon we need to find those who are most suited and who aspire to do that. Now the ruling team is a politically appointed team. The civil service team comprises of civil servants. So when we talk about meritocracy, we're talking about those who are competent among civil servants who will take up these positions. But then on the actual appointment system and so on, I will have to wait for the Secretary for Civil Service to talk to the major staff unions and to colleagues in the various grades before he would submit a proposal to me. Thank you.
前邊嗰位女記者。
The lady in front.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Lam. This is Grace Ma from HKBC. So I have two questions. The first one is about healthcare. So you have proposed waiving the referral requirement for specialist consultation, but the waiting time for specialists is so long already. So what's exactly the point of adding even more people to the queue? And the second question is on the Northern Metropolis. So parallel travelers have been troubling many North District residents before COVID. Are you worried that bringing more people into the North District will aggravate tensions between mainland visitors and the residents again and harm social harmony? Thank you.
Well, as far as the first question is concerned, I did acknowledge in my policy address that as Hong Kong is aging, and aging rather rapidly, there will be a heavy demand for medical services, whether in the specialist consultations or in hospitalization. We have been given a lot more resources to the hospital authority in the last 4 years. I think over 40% increase in budget. But the time has come that perhaps HA needs to have a total re-examination of how they should provide services. For example, now there is a much wider use of application of technology. There could be long-distance consultation, there could be telemedicine, there could be AI analysis instead of radiologists reading an X-ray, and so on and so on. So the time has come for the HA, of course, under the steer of the Secretary for Food and Health, to look at how they could improve on the waiting time for the various services. The second question about the Northern Metropolis, I do not quite understand your question. Apparently it's related to tourism. If there are more mainland tourists coming in, then of course we will need to find ways to cater for their needs, their demands. If there are no tourists coming in, then people are complaining because of COVID-19. No mainland tourists coming in, and the business are complaining. So we are always not in a comfort zone in dealing with this inflow of people. But the gist of doing the Northern Metropolis is to create land for housing as well as for industry in order that Hong Kong can move forward. Isn't it a much, much bigger objective than just dealing with day-to-day congestion and here and there? I'm sure we can deal with those micro problems, managing the people flow, the burden on the local transportation. But we need to think macro on what we want Hong Kong to be in the future, in the next 20 years or so. So the Northern Metropolis is devised with that objective in mind, and also to enable Hong Kong to integrate better into the national development, particularly the Greater Bay Area. Thank you.
Further English question? 後邊嗰位男記者。
The gentleman at the back.
I'm RTHK English News. Why is there a need to build another rail link connecting Hong Kong to Shenzhen and Qianhai when we already have the express rail link, the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge and other land ports? Is Hong Kong going to foot the bill? Secondly, your administration has proposed easing land sale restrictions for ancestral land, but why can't the government simply use the land resumption ordinance to take back those land? Would this policy end up encouraging developers to hold land? And also, given the vast amount of land in the new territories, is it still necessary to go ahead with the Lantau Tomorrow Vision project, which many critics say would be costly and harmful to the environment? And lastly, this is your last policy address for your current term. Looking back, how would you evaluate your work over the past 5 years? And are you going to run for the next chief executive election? Thank you.
I'm afraid you keep on asking questions I will not answer. I will not answer any question about my own future. I would not also evaluate my own performance as the chief executive of Hong Kong, except to tell you that this chief executive does work very hard every day in order to serve the people of Hong Kong. Now, the railway connection. Now, I have been advocating an approach that it is transport infrastructure-led in order to create land for development, in order to ensure that there will be easier flow of people and goods. You need good transport connectivity. To suggest that we don't need this connection between Hong Shui Kiu and Qianhai, I'm afraid you are going against the public opinion. Everybody who talk about the opportunities of Shenzhen and Qianhai for Hong Kong have been urging the government to commit to this rail link. This is not a very long railway. If you look at the map, it becomes very logical that we should have a connection between the northwestern part of Hong Kong, that is Hong Shui Kiu, Hachun, Lau Fau Shan, and Qianhai, because it's just across the bay. It's about 5 kilometers. It would take 10 minutes, maybe. If there is a railway connection, it would take 10, 15 minutes for a Hong Kong resident living in Hong Shui Kiu to go to work in Qianhai, and vice versa. That was the importance and significance on this rail link, without which you will have to travel by car via the Shenzhen Expressway, go into the border control point, and then travel through the roads in Shenzhen to reach Qianhai. That's the difference. I have not find out the exact difference in time, but I think at least it will be half an hour, if not more, to travel without a rail link. So that's the purpose of the rail link between Qianhai and Hong Shui Kiu. Now, about land owned by Zhou and Tong, this is private land. The government cannot resume private land for no purpose. I have told you some figures in the policy address that we have been resuming far more private land than the last 5 years. And we will resume some 700 hectares of private land in the coming years to support the various new town and NDAs in the northern part of NT. So we will not shy away from using the land resumption ordinance to resume land for a public purpose. So either it will be infrastructure, building of schools and infrastructure, or public housing. But that will need planning, because in order to satisfy the public purpose, we have to have planning. We have to approve public use before you could acquire the land. Now, so the Zhou Tong land is private land. And it has a very unique history to it. It's owned by people from the same ancestry, okay? And over the years, because of the restrictions in the new territories ordinance, which authorizes the government official, i.e. the district officer, to agree or approve transactions of Zhou Tong land, and also the replacement of the trustee, the Xi Lei Yuan. And because the law is unclear on under what circumstances could this district officer agree or disagree. And previous court cases have indicated that you probably need 100% consensus. And that makes it almost impossible to sell any land. Because nowadays, how could you get anything that has 100% consensus, especially when more and more second and third and fourth generations are joining the pool of eligible people to share the benefits of this Zhou and Tong land. So in order to release this land for development, which was the common aspiration of the NT people, as well as the people involved in the land development, they said that it is almost impossible. You are locking up unnecessarily perhaps thousands of land in the NT. So in order to meet that common aspiration and to unlock the private land for development, we had to work with the Hang Yi Group to find a way that we could allow this Zhou and Tong to dispose of their land in a more reasonable way, but without sacrificing the interests of the descendants. That was the purpose of the initiative. To suggest that we need not do anything, just use government powers to resume, is not proper governance, in my view. And I don't think you want me to go down that route, that we just blatantly take over anything that we want to take over. That is not what a civic and a law-abiding government should do. The third point is about land out tomorrow. In the figures that I have presented to you, about more than 1 million housing units in the next 20-25 years. That has already included the units coming out of the Gao Yizhao artificial islands reclamation, and it's quite a big share as well. So we could not forego the reclamation. Of course, in Hong Kong, there will be people disagreeing with anything we want to do. If we want to reclaim, they said no. We want to touch the country park, no. Now we are going into some of the wetland and fish pond, they would say no. But at the end of the day, common sense prevails and rationality prevails. Do we want Hong Kong to move forward? If we want, then the government has to be far more decisive and determined in order to press ahead with the various developments, despite some objections. I don't think there's a lot of resistance. On the financial side, time and again, the real estate professionals have shown to Hong Kong people that this is a money-making business, because the land to be reclaimed and formed and sold will generate a huge revenue for the government, not only to pay off for the infrastructure, but also to go into the government treasury to support other activities. And on top of that, the Land Out Tomorrow project, particularly the Gao Yizhao artificial islands reclamation, will meet other town planning purposes. It will give us a third CBD of Hong Kong with about 4 million square meters, which is about the size of the entire Kowloon East office space, 4 million square meters. It will improve the road and rail connectivity between Hong Kong Island, Lantau Island, and the northwestern part of New Territories. Now, as I said, I'm not going to answer any question about my own future. This is indeed my final policy address in this 5-year term, and I and my team will continue to work very hard to put in place as much as possible what we have announced in this policy address. Thank you.
How to?
Next question on the right. The lady in between the two gentlemen on the front row. The one next to you. Yeah, thank you. Mrs. Lam, I'm from Hong Kong Economic Journal. 2 questions. One, now you have included many proposals that will straddle this term of government. That's why some have described this policy address as the Election Manifesto. What do you say to that? And if you are not going to be re-elected, are you confident that the next CE will be able to complete the items on the list? Second question on the reorganization of Policy Bureau. Now, there's mention that you'll be exchanging views with stakeholders in the next few months in the policy address. Would these stakeholders include those who may be running in the next CE election, or will you wait till after the election before you have these exchanges? First question, on any major infrastructure project, they cannot really be completed in a 5-year term. I recall in the first policy address in 1997, there's mention of 10 infrastructural projects, major infrastructure projects, that not all of them are completed. Now, for the Shenzhen Hong Kong Airport link now is become the Hong Shui-Kiu Shanghai infrastructural link, which would be even more cost effective. So it's not possible that there are major development projects proposed by any government that could be completed in the same term of the government. So either we continue with the project if we propose the items, or we just forget about proposing these items altogether. And that's the crux of the matter that I've been talking about. Now, if no one wants to do anything, that's what will happen in Hong Kong. We will be, standing still, and then other people will catch up with us or even exceed us. So whether we could proceed with these projects depends on whether there's public support, and also whether the next term government has the determination to do so and the capacity to do so. Now you look at history, I've been doing things like this all the time. When I was the Secretary for Development in 2007, in the last 8 months of my term, I proposed the energizing Kowloon East that actually went beyond my term. I remember there was a newspaper commentary that said that, the energizing Kowloon East was a creative project. It would have been better if it was proposed much earlier. So that's commentary from the editorial of the Hong Kong Economic Journal. I still kept that clipping. So now in Kwun Tong, Kai Tak, it was a dilapidated industrial area, and now it's become a district, the second CBD with many insurance and other financial services companies there. 2.9 million square meters of floor area has been provided, and another million of square meters of floor area is still being produced. And then the months before I attended my resignation as the Chief Secretary for Administration, what did I propose? I proposed the Hong Kong Palace Museum, and the museum is about to be completed soon. So is it the case that I shouldn't have proposed these projects because they would go beyond my term? So please don't try to link my proposals now to whether I'm going to run for a re-election. If you want to link things to me, link it to me at the personal level, because I like to keep working. Even if I have, say, 2 or 3 days left in my term, I will still work for Hong Kong. For the reorganization proposal, I'm just hoping that the next CE would be interested in rationalizing the government structure. But as I've said, I will be approaching the professional bodies, the relevant advisory committees, and also in particular for culture, sports, tourism, infrastructure, housing, sectors and so on. I will talk to those stakeholders. The gentleman on the left. I'm from Citizen News. 2 questions. In the policy address, there's no mention of the way forward for district councils. Now, today the government issued a paper to take back the powers of district councils to allocate funding. So why would you just be open about it and come up with some new proposal for district council? Now, in your election manifesto, you said that you want to promote social harmony. You want there to be better cooperation between government and local bodies. So, are you moving closer or further away from that target? Now, if you were allowed to go back on one proposal, which one would it be? And Mr. Lam was there to listen to your policy address. Did he ask you not to run for re-election? Now, I'm not going to answer your last question. And for district council, I've already mentioned that we're going to take back the powers of the district council to allocate funding. It's not that we're trying to do it secretly at all. You've seen how the district councils have been working in this term. Many of them could not really meet the requirements of being patriots who love Hong Kong. So now we're trying to just sort out the mess, if I could put it that way. I've never said we're going to shorten the term of the district council, which is 4 years. So this term of the district council will continue. But then originally, of course, in each district council, there should be about 20 people representing different constituencies, but in some district councils, there are just 3 members left. In other words, a dozen or so of constituencies are not represented on district council. But then for these 3 members, so should they be allowed to allocate funds for all the constituencies of the district council of the district? Would it be fair? It's probably not democratic. Please let me finish. So it will be undemocratic to do this. Now we have looked at, arranged voting for 3 batches of district councillors, and there is new situation that kept coming up, and LegCo will soon be prorogued. So perhaps the most responsible thing is for them to stop making decisions on funding allocation or on the priority of minor works projects. So instead, the government will look at, will make decisions based on the whole district. So that will be more in line with the interests of all the residents in the district, and we should not just leave it to just a few members. Now, why is it not included in the policy address? I want to include more in the policy address, but already this policy address has over 2,000 words. It's taking me so long to read it out. So we can't really include everything here. And anyway, this is not a major policy change. We're just suspending the practice for now. As for the future of the district council or district administration as a whole, we need time to consider that further. That's why it's not a matter that should be included in the policy address at this stage. Because in accordance with Article 97 of the Basic Law, the district council remains an advisory body. And then we're not taking back the powers of the district council, if I want to be pedantic, because the district councils never have any powers. They are consultative bodies. The government would just seek views from district councils, and if they have certain views on how funds should be allocated, we would respect their views. That's all. But then the controlling officer of each district is the Director of Home Affairs. So we have to make this clear. It's not taking back powers. They've never been given any powers by any law, so it's not about taking back powers. The 2017 Election Manifesto. Yes, I said we would work together with the public. At the time there was some social tension, there was a social discord, and I had a sense of mission, and I wanted to foster social harmony. And it's not true that I was unable to do that before the Fugitive Offenders Bill. Most political parties were able to sit down with me to discuss matters. Now, for my 2017 and 2018 policy address, the motion of thanks was passed at LegCo. So I did work very hard for that, and I was sincere in resolving the social dissent, and I tried very hard to foster social harmony and consensus. But then you saw what happened after. There were many political bodies which became forces that wanted to start chaos in Hong Kong, and that were against against China. So, and eventually there was even endangering of national security. But about connecting with the public and working with the public, that remains my philosophy. And that's why for this year's policy address, we're going back to working together with the public, building a bright future together. Last question, the lady over there. The Hong Kong Economic Times. For the Northern Metropolis, there's no mention of the Shaling Ridge Cemetery, which is really a controversial subject. So what is your plan? And then in policy address, it says that the national security law will become part of the assessment for civil servants. Can you give us more details about including national security law as entry requirement for civil servants? That is straightforward. It's just that they have to learn about national security law. For example, it's like when civil servants join the service, there's induction training. They have to learn about the basic law. So now they'll be asked to learn about the national security law. But whether there will be questions on national security law in the test, I don't know. I think we have to ask the Civil Service Bill. But what's important is that civil servants must learn about national security law. Because the reason is that there is a need for self-awareness. I've used this term several times. People need to have self-awareness to respect the rule of law. And it's the same for civil servants. Civil servants have to have the self-awareness to know that it's their duty to safeguard national security. We don't have to remind them each time, otherwise we won't be a successful team that serves the public. So that's why civil servants need to know what the national security law is about. They need to have the awareness of safeguarding national security. It's the same as the spirit of serving the public. Your second question about the cemetery. The Shaolin Richer, the cemetery. Now I've asked actually Mr. Ling Ka-Kang to brief you further on the northern metropolis. Well, there's a historical reason for this cemetery project, because in the past there was little development in the northern metropolis, so whatever is not, whatever cities are not popular with the public would be moved there, like incinerators and so on. So that's mentioned that we need to beautify the environment near Sandy Ridge Cemetery so as to minimize the nuisance to the public. Well, that's something we can achieve. And it's true that the government did consider moving some burial facilities to Sandy Ridge, and we've completed a land formation project. But then there is strong opposition from the public about this super burial city. Well, there are actually three elements here. One is columbarium, which is not, which doesn't really cause much nuisance. You've been to many public columbarium, I'm sure, like in Diamond Hill. It's just a place where ashes are stored, and then there's another one is a funeral parlor, and the third one is crematorium. Now, we do need columbarium barrier because there are 50,000 deaths each year in Hong Kong, so we need to make sure there is a way to store the remains. And so there will be 200,000 niches in the Sandy Ridge columbarium. Actually, it's a beautiful design. It's like a garden. As for the funeral parlor, there is no need for it because there are enough funeral parlor facilities in Hong Kong. In fact, these days, some people don't choose to go to funeral parlors. So there is no need for the government to build a funeral tower. And also, it's such a long way away. People probably won't go there just to pay respect to the dead. And the other element, that is the crematorium, we are inclined towards not building it because we could make use of technology and other means. And also we could make use of existing facilities, say at Lower Hub Shack. We could expand facilities there, and we should be able to meet the needs. Now, if the northern metropolis will become a metropolis serving Shenzhen as well, then we have to consider a new approach. And so we can't put all unpopular facilities or move up unpopular facilities from the urban areas to the NT North. For northern metropolis, so what facilities are we going to put there? You see that from the strategy. We want to create jobs, some 650,000 jobs, 150,000 jobs that are IT related, and there are other commercial activities, shopping malls and so on. And then government facilities could also help create jobs. That's why for non-location specific government facilities or offices, these will be moved to the NT North. We have identified some sites, and we're looking for departments that could be moved there. That means we'll be able to create more jobs, and that will help the transportation network. Imagine there are several thousand people who have to commute to Hong Kong to work, but in future, these 3,000 people could work in Kutong or New Territories North. That will completely change the picture for the transportation network. So we are adopting a new mindset here. Now, people complain about traffic congestion, and they say that we shouldn't be sending more people to the NT North. But, congestion is only one way. That is, in the early morning peak hours, people move from north to south. At night, people move from south to north. But then in the reverse direction, only 30% of the capacity is taken up. So that means, say, you get a seat on the bus or the train. So that's why we need to move more jobs to the north. So for people living in Taipo, Tuen, and so on, they don't need to commute all the way from the north to the south. Instead, they could just move around in the northern part of the new territories, and then we'll be able to bring about traffic congestion relief. Thank you.